You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps on the Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of indie podcasts with the Darkcast Network.
We have cookies. Between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living, join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jamie.
And where is Elisa this week?
Well, her and the family went out of town, and Elisa was pretty dang determined that she was going to climb atop the tallest mountain here in Utah that she could find and go hand gliding with the pterodactyls.
Now that would be fun.
She's on an adventure.
I would say that would be an adventure.
She's trying to become one with the pterodactyls.
Why haven't we not seen these pterodactyls?
Oh, they're there. Only Elisa knows where they're at.
We're going to have to ask her when she gets back.
Yeah, I told her if all goes well and she kind of infiltrates their little clan there, that to invite us along next time.
Right? That'd be great. So last week we talked about that haunted chateau in France. And this week we're going back to Normandy, France. But again, not to the beach, but we are going to an abbey.
Another abbey.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did one a while ago.
Yeah, we did. And this one has got some amazing stories associated to it.
Can't wait. Let's get into it.
So the Abbey de Mortemer is one of those tucked away places to visit that you hope will never change. It's not a huge tourist attraction, which is kind of nice, but it is still quite remarkable. And honestly, the pictures that I've seen are just absolutely gorgeous of this place, both as it was and as it is.
Yeah, we'll have to post some of those.
Oh, definitely. So a narrow road leads to the grassy car park and a tiny ticket office built from old stones. Inside the trink shine against the shadows, and the wall is lined with historic books. Then out in the parkland, edged by a river and overlooked by an elegant chateau and a very large colombier, which is a pigeon house.
Okay.
The old abbey is outlined in a short, thick walls that lead along an old nave to high transept walls that stand alone, so tall they seem to sway above the countryside. A country silence of wind in the trees, birdsong and grasshoppers hint at the old songs of monks. 1,000 years ago, as a wild, secret place inhabited by just a handful of hermit monks living in makeshift shelters, the name Mortemer comes from Mortemer, meaning Dead Sea, and a dank swamp surrounded the Folie-Broc stream that flows along the valley. It was solitude that brought the 12th century abbot Alexandre from Dumont-le-Pierre to the valley, seeking to protect his monks from worldly diversions. 12th century.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Just a few.
Just one or two, maybe.
So the first royal to invest in Mortemer was King Henry I of England, Duke of Normandy, and fourth son of William the Conqueror, who gave his approval for the community in 1184.
Dang.
I know. His generosity was cut short as Lyons Lefort was just a year later when he died from eating a surfeit of lampreys. I didn't know that was poisonous.
I didn't either.
But then who eats lampreys?
I don't know. I don't.
I guess the Henry I did. Noble patronage continued through his powerful daughter, Empress Mathilda, and grandson Henry II. Royalty understood it was wise to bolster their authority with the support of God and his very well-organized representatives on earth. So make good with God so that way you can rule the man on the ground.
Oh, geez.
Ponds were dug, bees tucked into walls. The Cistercian monks lived well on perch, pigeon, eggs, and honey. Dependent on donations, construction took many decades. A chapter house was completed in 1154. 2 hostleries and an infirmary were added. The imposing nave was built around 1160 and cloisters in the same decade. Eventually, the finished church was consecrated on March 8th, 1209, by Robert Poulin, the Archbishop of Rouen. By the 15th century, Mortemer was home to hundreds and the most powerful abbey in Normandy. Good management, income from their lands, some as far away as England, and generous gifts gave security even as the 100 Years' War swirled around them. By the time it was over, in 1453, the abbey was no longer under the English crown, but was now French. Then, in the 17th century, politics gave the role of the abbot to men who did not live at Mortemer. They drained its prosperity into their own coffers, and the monks could only watch as their beloved building, made perilously from flint and limestone, began to crumble. The abbey's condition became such an embarrassment to the Parliament that it was forced to act. A new rectory was constructed, the main house that we all see today, over the old cellars, and Columbier was restored. So the pigeon house was restored. But Mortemer did not fully recover. By the end of the 18th century, just 4 monks lived under its leaking roofs. Then came the final disaster. In 1789, revolution swept across France. Religion was out of favor. Churches and abbeys were stripped of their wealth. The humble monks at Mortemer were thought to be harboring a secret fortune. Perhaps to the poor of the valley, they were. One day, in 1790, the revolutionaries arrived at the abbey. They hunted down the monks, dragged them to the old cellar. Here, the last living remnants of Mortimer's gentle brotherhood were massacred, their blood mingled with the wine from broken barrels.
Jeez, that's horrible.
Yeah, like I understand fighting, like killing a soldier, an enemy soldier, or a revolutionary or whatever at that point. These are pacifists.
Yep.
There's no fight in them. Ugh, it's horrible. The abbey and its farm were sold on March 31st, 1791, as a national asset by the new government for the sum of 84,200 livres, which I'm not sure that must be an old French currency.
Yeah, and I don't know what that would compute to by today's standards.
Yeah, millions probably. M. Duval, the merchant grocer from Grand Andely, became the owner of the mill, lands, meadow, cloister buildings, bells, sacred vases, ornaments, and furniture. He cheerfully sold the abbey's stones to builders, abandoning the property when it stopped turning him a profit just a few years later. From 1808, the abbey changed between more sympathetic hands, losing some buildings, maintaining others, until it was bought in 1865 by a rich Parisian, M. Delarue, who moved in with his wife and 2 children. They soon discovered it was a very troubled building.
Oh, there's a lot of history there.
Yeah. So I'll have to post this picture, but there's a picture from 1824. It's kind of it's a vintage postcard, but it shows what the abbey looked like in 1824.
Wow.
Just decimated. They ain't much left.
Not much left standing.
No. Well, that's what happens when you get someone that comes in there and decides to just rip it apart and sell the stones off.
Oh, yeah. For their own profit.
Yep. The family Delarue were not alone at the abbey. The old buildings were having trouble letting go of their past. The old house can expect to have a few unexplained noises, perhaps rather more shadows than necessary. So it was at first. But slowly and surely, the unsettling and unexplained escalated. One evening, walking across the lawns, young people of the house saw a soft, ethereal light from the old locked library. They assumed it was their mother until later she said otherwise. As if by invisible hand, latches were unfastened, handles turned, windows and doors opened. Paintings in the corridor on the first floor were discovered turned to the wall or fallen to the floor without a broken string or loose nail. Footsteps trudged along empty corridors. Electrics inexplicably failed and muffled voices droned inside the walls. One room was particularly unsettling. A pretty pink bedroom that looked out over the lawns towards the Columbier.
We'll call it the pink room.
Yes, the pink room. We know about the room from M. Lardoux, who became the abbey's owner in the 1960s. He experienced so many ghostly happenings that after hearing about the Delarue exorcism, he traveled to Nice to speak with the Delarue's daughter.
Dang.
She told him that one night a young girl, fiancée of M. Delarue's son, Charles, came to stay and she was given the pink room, the only one available. As the house became quiet for the night, her room did not. The terrified girl was tormented by malevolent sounds as objects around her room seemed to come to life. She was found in the morning, pale, terrified, and brandishing the fire tongs at her spectral tormentors. The young lady announced loudly she would never live in such a house, broke off her engagement, and went back to Paris.
I don't blame her.
Right?
At that point.
Like, that's just, it's all terrifying in the end anyway.
But why would you stay in a room where that was going on all night? I would have left the room and like went to tell somebody or something.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she didn't feel she could. Maybe she felt the only thing she could do was sit on her bed with fire tongs and, swing wildly into the air at unknown whatever.
I'm surprised she didn't scream or anything. Surely somebody would have heard that if she did. How can you have such terrifying things going on all night and not make a sound?
I don't know.
To where nobody would be aware.
Yeah, I don't know.
Odd.
Yeah, it's super odd. M. Delarue's daughter was unimpressed by concerns around the pink room. A nurse during the First World War, she was awarded a medal for bravery, telling her father, "I was never afraid in the trenches." So she asked if she could make the pink room her own. She ain't afraid no ghost.
She ain't afraid no ghosts.
She found it quiet, but even years later remembered the strongest feelings of being observed. Apart from a coat carefully unhooking itself and laying on the floor, she did not feel threatened. Then one evening, looking out her window, and observed a procession of monks gliding from the house towards the Colombier. Whether she stayed in the pink room after that, we do not know. I mean, could you imagine, like, you're sitting there in your room, you look out your window, and there's a string of monks walking from the house to the pigeon house.
I mean, I don't know. Hard to say unless you're really in that position.
Yeah. I think
in my mind, I'm kind of like, that'd be so cool to see.
And terrifying. Like, there's always that little bit of like...
But given that they're monks, for me, I don't know that I would necessarily be terrified. Because if you recognize them as monks,
yeah,
to me, that's not terrifying.
Yeah. That's true. It's not, I mean... They're the last thing you'd be considered to be terrified of.
Yeah.
So by 1921, the Delarue family feared the house contained something less benign than supernatural monks, a more diabolical presence. In desperation, they asked Abbey Humboldt for another exorcism. Apparently, there had been a few at the Abbey. It was not entirely successful. The house was quiet for a while. Shortly after the Delarues left, Mortemer and put the property up for sale, it took 10 years to find a buyer.
Word travels.
Right? So the monks had continued to make their presence, and one saved the life of an English paratrooper in World War II. The soldier bailed out over the forest and was spotted by the enemy. A monk emerged from the forest as if from nowhere and led him to safety of a resistant cell, then disappeared. The resistant knew it could only be a ghostly Abbey monk.
That's pretty cool, too.
That is pretty cool. Which is why it'd be hard to be scared of them, because they're helping people, stay alive.
Right.
When M. Lerdoux bought the Abbey in 1965, alongside the dilapidated buildings, he inherited M. Lucien, a farm worker who slept in the basement. Asked if he wished to continue working at Mortemer, he readily agreed, provided he could be housed elsewhere, even if it was at his own expense. He explained that since his arrival at the Abbey some half-dozen years before, he had been terrorized by nocturnal noises. From 11 o'clock in the evening to 5 o'clock in the morning, the sound of spectral footsteps in the corridor above haunted him. He said, "These steps in the hall at night, I hear them so well that they wake me up. It's been going on for years. I cannot take it anymore. For nothing in the world would I want to go back to sleep there." Aware how unusually alive this house was, M. Lerdoux found a cottage nearby for him.
It's funny, though, that he stayed there as long as he did with that going on.
Yeah.
Like, this is the part I don't get when people are like, they wake me up and I hear these terrifying sounds from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And yet they put up with it for years upon years.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem kind of
strange?
Yeah.
It does. It's like, oh my gosh, this has been going on for 2 years. Maybe we should call someone in to help us.
Or say something.
Yeah. But maybe it's just that piece, right? Where people, they get used to it, for one, right? But two, who's going to believe them?
Well, obviously, this guy didn't get used to it because he says, yeah, I'll stay on, but you got to move me somewhere else, not here, anywhere but here.
But he was there for 12 years.
I know. That's my point. Well, like, why?
Yeah, I know.
Why not request to be moved beforehand or, find somewhere nearby, something?
Well, I mean, he technically was a servant, so I don't know how much clout he had to be able to ask to move.
Well, it can't hurt to ask. Worst they're going to tell you is no.
Yeah. But it did sit empty for 10 years. So, I mean, he was like the only groundskeeper. Here's the thing. If he was there for 10 years by himself.
Why couldn't he live anywhere he wanted?
Right? Why didn't he pick a different room? So there's other legends associated to the Abbey. One of them, is a white lady.
Gee, I've never heard that before.
Right? Legend says after the death of his only son, King Henry I, in an attempt to reform his daughter, Matilda, he locked her in a room in the Mortemer Abbey for 5 years.
Reform her from what? Does it say?
It doesn't say.
Of course not.
The anger and hate she felt stained and seeped into the walls of the monastery. But, as we know, Matilda didn't die there. She went on to live for several decades into 1167, when it said her spirit returned to the abbey to haunt the area as the White Lady. She is said to appear on nights closer to a full moon, moaning as she drifts through the ruins of the monastery. Those that have reportedly seen her, or known of others that have seen her, say she can either be wearing black or white gloves. It appears that if she appears to you with white gloves, you are destined for good luck. But if she comes with black gloves, you are cursed to die within a year.
Oh, geez. Let's just twist this a little bit more, shall we?
Oh, we shall. It gets better.
Always does.
So the next event at the Abbey was said to have occurred in the early 1500s, when the monastery was at its peak. Considered to be one of the biggest monasteries in the world, it had over 200 monks in it. The legend says one night a frail, suffering woman was brought to them with the illness only they could help with. It was revealed to the monks she was possessed by the spirit of a wolf and cursed to become a werewolf for 7 nights. The monks chained her to a room, went about conducting multiple exorcisms to eradicate the spirit. In the end, it worked, but possibly unbeknownst to the monks, whatever evil wolf spirit or demonic force that was in the woman attached itself to the grounds in the walls of the monastery.
I mean, had to go somewhere, I guess.
Right? Several hundred years later, in 1884, a man by the name of Roger Sabaru was said to be hunting around the woods near the monastery when he was attacked by a large werewolf. He shot it multiple times, killing the creature, and when he returned back at dawn, he found the bloody body of his wife. Some say the spirit of Roger's wife or his own heartbroken spirit still wanders the area when the moon is full.
Or did he just shoot his wife and just make up the story?
I mean, how did he not go to prison for that?
Well, I mean, because back then people had different beliefs. So I'm sure when he said, I saw this werewolf, and so I fired some shots at it, and I thought it had run away, but then I went back the next day to look, and there was my wife dead.
So he carries silver bullets with him? Or is that just also folklore and myth?
I'm pretty sure it's made up. If it came out of the mouth of a human being, it's probably made up.
Just like werewolves.
There you go. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it sounds like, how convenient, though. And that's probably exactly what he thought. Oh, how convenient this would be.
Right.
I could just say I saw this werewolf. And I fired some shots. And it ran off. And I went back the next morning. And I see my wife laying dead.
Yeah.
A few yards from where I originally shot the werewolf. But my question is where was your wife all night? Did you not notice she was not with you? Or in the house or anything? Did you not notice?
You would think. You would think that you would notice those things.
Well, this is why I say he probably just used the convenience of the whole werewolf thing to murder his wife.
Right. So there's another tale. It's a tale of Goblin, which is Norman for goblin. It says that a treasure was buried and now lost under the abbey. A treasure fantastic enough to restore the Mortemer to an early glory. The Goblin here is disguised as a cat and guards the secret hoard. If you meet the Goblin and can stay awake until it sleeps, the treasure will reappear.
Okay. I'm not even really sure why they'd be hiding a fantastical treasure below the abbey.
I don't know. Why is it guarded by a cat?
I don't know. Well, it takes the form of a cat.
And you have to...
I don't know.
You have to be there till it sleeps?
I mean, what if it's one of those things where they stay awake for a fortnight?
Oh my gosh.
So 2 weeks. There's no way.
Right? Well, I mean, but a cat, like, we have cats. I mean, they sleep all the time.
Yeah, but it's not a cat.
That's true. It's not a cat. And that is the story of the Abbey de Mortemer.
Interesting.
It's a fun one.
It is. These stories are, yeah, you can sit there and roll your eyes and say, oh, sure, right. But for a story, it's entertaining.
Yes.
It really is.
And let's face it, these things were built in the late 1100s.
Yeah. Long, long ago.
That building currently stands 1,100 years old.
Isn't that amazing?
It is it's flabbergasting, honestly. And to think that the new buildings that are there were built on the old buildings.
Yeah.
So that original cellar where those monks were murdered.
It was the absolute original. Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, is also where that poor farmer had to spend the night for 12 years.
Yeah. And I'm sure he probably heard the monks walking around.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like it was anything malevolent.
No, but
I get where if it keeps you up and it starts at 11 p.m. and ends at 5 a.m. and keeps you up like that, yeah, you're bound to kind of go a little bit crazy.
Right?
Because you're not getting any real sleep.
No, that's a lot of noise.
That's a lot of noise.
And it's like, and the thing is like, I wonder, I mean, obviously it was every night, right? Or he thinks it was every night. I mean, he had to eventually fall asleep.
Well,
so it's one of those things like, okay, all right, it's winter. It gets dark at 7:30 tonight. I'm just going to go to bed right away.
Yep.
And hopefully I get some sleep before this stuff wakes me up. Summertime, you're hosed.
Well, and I mean, there comes a point where you get so tired that you just sleep like a rock and you're not aware of any noise.
Yeah.
Because you're just that tired.
I think the one that there are two that just make me giggle. It's the werewolf and the goblin cat.
Yeah. So our cats aren't cats, they're goblins.
I often stay awake looking at them while they sleep.
That's weird.
Where is the treasure?
You're weird.
I can't.
Obviously, it's somewhere else.
Oscar likes to sleep on me while I'm working.
Okay, so maybe that is your treasure.
The love of a cat?
Love of a kitty cat.
I'll take it. Everybody, if you enjoy stories like this of the Abbey Mortemer and other haunted locations or just ghostly sightings, please like and subscribe to our channel and our podcast. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.